You know, maybe recording at the same time that I'm currently battling, against my allergies, maybe not my smartest decision. Hello there, everybody. I am Subarnai28Kanaimer, and once again, welcome back to the insanity that is Chaos Head. It has actually been 2 weeks since I done any recording, since I officially finally got back from, from my little vacation. Alright, so last episode we got we had our chain yanked, and now we are dealing with DQNs. Delightful. The voices of the DQN couple and the Kogyarus are way too loud, so I quickly got out of there while telling them all to go to hell in my head. Right, because that's where we left off. And we picked up right here. Tippy-tappy. So yeah, that's how I ended up getting tangled up with an IRL chuny chick. Okay, asshole, this time you pissed me off. Seriously, Lord Neidhart, you're always saying shit like, oh, I didn't give a fuck about 3D, but you've gotten real nice and close with a bunch of 3D girls recently, haven't you? You even said earlier that one of them broke into your house. I don't care who you ask. That's straight out of an eroge. You plunged straight into your once-in-a-lifetime chance to be popular. All right, listen well. I'll admit that I have indeed amassed quite the number of opportunities to speak with cute females. However, every single IRL one is a fucking mental case. That is a... Well, if I may perfectly be honest, I wouldn't say that they're all mental cases. You know, a person whose actions and words and actions are very clearly born from insanity. I wouldn't really say that they're all mental cases. I would just say that, they're a bit quirky. That is the, word I would use. You try being on the receiving end of their brain-melting Denpa attacks. The sheer scale of schizo, it's legitimately horrifying. Okay, I twooey am sorry. Don't you dare do that uwu language. Don't worry about it. Even after I'd gone back home, I'd still been somewhat interested in what Senna has told me. Of course, I didn't think that what she'd said was true, but I was pretty sure that I'd be able to confirm it for myself if I did a little bit of research into the patent and the memorandum specifically. So with Grimm's help, I started searching the internet. I also was able to get one of Grimm's friends who lived in America to help out as well. But even with all that help, I still didn't think we were going to find anything. In this day and age, you couldn't trust anyone without a source. That kind of applies nowadays, I'd say. Anyway. Yo, I just got a message from Shiho. Shiho was the friend of Grimm that I'd mentioned earlier. He lived in America and spoke fluent English. Let me guess. BS, right? That stupid fucking mental case. She had to have just been making a fool out of me because she didn't think I could understand English. Don't underestimate the power of the internet. Consider yourself pwned. It exists, apparently. Oh. Big shock. It exists? What did? The guy went out of his way to time-lime it for us. Anyway, let me up it. Is this just more Is this more bait? Nah, man, you don't trust me at all, do you? Although that's probably my fault for being...
もしかして、マジなのか?
Did you really feel the need to interrupt me, Takumi? When I was doing my excellent VA work for Grimm. I see how it is. Although that's probably my fault for being an ass most of the time. Okay, then how about I invite Shiho instead? I'd been tricked by Grimm several times in the past. If I trusted him like I usually did, he'd hit me with something so bad that it'd make my brain blue screen. But he was saying that he was going to invite Shiho and that he even had a source for us. If this is just you baiting me again, I'll kick you out of the guild. Okay, just trust me, just this once. He was being surprisingly confident. Maybe it really was okay to trust him this time. Yes, you are. Slightly nervous, I squinted my eyes halfway shut to protect myself from seeing anything too quickly or too clearly, and then I clicked the link. Whoa. Brain imaging techniques. Remote viewing, orbitofrontal cortex, prefrontal lobotomy. What the fuck? The funny thing is, some of these words actually can be read out. I'm straining my eyes just looking at them. It was a document written in English with a bunch of strange diagrams on the lower half. Part of it looked like a human face. The headline read, United States patent. I knew that much at least. In other words, this was an actual US patent. Yes, we know what VR is.
すでに実際にテストは成功している。ある研究チームが特許を取得済みだ。
It was real. I then went to open one of the two text files that had come bundled with it. One of them had a series of news articles that seemed to mention the patent, all of which were translated into Japanese. One said that the Psychophysiology Research Laboratory of America's Victor Condria University, that's a mouthful, was currently researching a groundbreaking invention known as VR, visual rebuilding. As the goal of the research was primarily for healthcare, it had been gaining the attention of visually impaired people from all over the world. It was groundbreaking technology that enabled people who were blind from birth to see the scenery in front of them through video cameras and other imaging devices. To put it simply, this was done by converting signals, the ones that compose the image data that the video camera received, into the only signal the brain could recognize, electrical signals known as nerve impulses. These are then transported to the brain via the optic nerve. There had already been successful tests, and the patent had already been registered.
特許本当に認められてる
So did that mean that what Senna had said wasn't just some chuny delusion? I gulped, then went to open the other text file. I began reading Presidential Documents, Memorandum of March 27, 1997. Strengthened protections for human subjects of classified research. The agency shall jointly propose to prohibit waiver of informed consent for classified research, part of it said. Okay, informed consent. To agree to any form of contract under the condition of being provided the correct information. In Japan, it is primarily used in the medical field. A physician explains the treatment to the patient, truthfully, in detail, and in an easily understood manner. This includes the definition of the treatment, as well as its side effects, success rate, risks, costs, alternative treatments, etc. Once the patient fully understands these, they are able to provide consent. Well, I mean, yeah, you need to be given all of the details before you make a decision like that. It's gross negligence if they don't at least let you know what's going on. Beginning 1 year after the date of this memorandum, no agency shall conduct or support classified human research without having proposed and promulgated the common rule, said another. The document was then signed at the bottom by William J. Clinton and closed with The White House, Washington, March 27th, 1997. William J. Clinton. Will Clinton? I did not have sex with that individual. Whatever. A memorandum from the President of the United States. The content sounded like the premise to a movie or something, so I never would have thought it was actually real. I went to check the original document via the URL. Even I could read English for the most part. Despite how I might have looked, I was a lot smarter than those DQNs that went to school every day. Despite how I might have looked, I was a lot smarter than those DQNs that went to school every day. Spoken like an edgy teen writing a creepypasta. I should know, I was one of those edgy teens. The actual contents written in the document were the same as the translated text.
ということは
For people that are actually, just for clarification, I never actually wrote a creepypasta. I was like in one of those days where DeviantArt was like going crazy over them, and I tried making my own SCP. Failed miserably. We don't talk about that. Senna's words echoed in the back of my mind.
ある意図的な情報を神経パルスへコンバートすることが可能なら、人の五感すべて、さらには人の意志そのものもコントロールできるんじゃないか。
It was starting to get somewhat difficult to understand at this point, but with what Senna had told me, combined with the sources we'd found online that backed her up, it all sent chills down my spine. I had a feeling that something terrible was lurking within. But what confused me the most was what Senna's true intentions were in telling me all this. Did it have anything to do with me? The part about being able to control people's free will definitely wasn't something I could dismiss as somebody else's problem. Because there was the possibility that I was a sleepwalker, right? On the day of the third New Gen incident, the crucifixion, I had been told that I'd been posting in a chat room as Shogun. Apparently I'd posted from Ad Cafe too, but I had no memory of any of it. And not only that, but I had absolutely no memory of Rimi too. We had been classmates for over a year and we'd been close enough to hang out on multiple occasions, yet I had no memory of any of it. Maybe I had done all of those things while I was being manipulated by some other being. Besides, I was terrible at talking to 3D girls to begin with, so there was no way I would be close to a cute girl like Rimi normally. No, I was thinking too hard about this. At the very least, I knew that the chat thing was just one of Yua's delusions. Shogun was a separate entity from me. He was trying to entrap me, and it didn't go beyond that. This was true regardless of whether or not he had actually been the old man in the wheelchair that had appeared in front of 107. Maybe Senna too was one of Shogun's underlings. Maybe she was just trying to deceive me. Don't just blindly accept everything without questioning it. Don't trust a suspicious girl that you don't actually know. Senna and Yua were both of the same breed. That's how it should go, right? Seiratan. Oh. Yua! Man, it's been a while since we've seen you. The only sound present in the room was the distinct clacking of a keyboard. Also, is that a picture of you? No, that's somebody else, I think. Sister? Mother? It would be kind of weird if you had a picture of yourself next to your PC. Also, I see the individually wrapped candies underneath your screen. Kusunoki Yua's thin, supple fingers moved as if they were dancing, her gaze fixed on the monitor all the while. Her touch typing was effortless, and she made next to no typos. She was writing an email. A very long one at that. You had already been writing for almost half an hour, endlessly deliberating over the contents of the email and making frequent revisions as she continued to type. Suddenly, her fingers stopped moving. With a small pained sigh, she abruptly pressed and held down the backspace key. The cursor that was lit up on the monitor began scrolling leftward at high speed. All of the long sentences she had written so far disappeared nearly instantaneously as the cursor traveled across the screen. When all the contents had been erased, Yua took hold of the Gero Froggy stuffed animal lying on her bed, then hugged it tightly to her chest. This was a habit that Yua had developed recently. If she did not hug something in this way, she would be faced with unbearable anxiety. Honestly, same. It's why I've got like 2 or 3 pillows with me at all times, so if I'm like laying in bed, just to kind of prevent anxiety, I will literally just hug one of the pillows just to kind of keep me from losing myself. Yeah, even I deal with anxiety. A lot. Honestly, I can relate. Burying her chin in the stuffed animal, Yua sighed once again and shook her head softly.
私に勇気をください。
Murmuring softly to no one in particular, Yua's expression stiffened. With the stuffed animal resting on her lap, she returned her hands to the keyboard. Within the monitor, each letter she typed in a fluid manner was quickly displayed in sequence. Compared to the one she had erased just moments before, this email was far more short and simple, and only served to provide the bare necessities of what she needed to convey. When she finished writing, Yua hesitated for a moment, and then she resolutely clicked on the send icon.
送っちゃった。
Are you sending an email to Takumi? Before she could stop it from going through, the email had already been sent in the blink of an eye. Yua squeezed the Gyro Froggy sitting on her lap tightly and continued to stare at the monitor in front of her for over an hour. Although she had not been expecting one, there was no sign of a reply at all. Now we're going to get a notification from Takumi's end? Oh. Hello. There I was, in my beloved room 37. Oh, right, I'm Takumi. As I sank down into the recliner, I started chewing on my nails in an attempt to distract myself from my irritation. There was a reason why I'd come to At Cafe 2 days in a row. Yesterday and today. 2 nights ago, after Grim, Shiho, and I found out what Senna had said was true, I'd received an email from Yua. Knew it! In it, she'd insolently said that she wanted to talk to me one more time. Fuck off! I'd wanted to tell her. What the hell did she mean she wanted to talk? After deceiving me like that? I had nothing to say to her. The funny thing is, I can understand where Takumi's coming from. The first girl that seemingly was interested in him and shared similar interests, and it turned out that she was basically misleading him. He opened himself up for the first time, and it backfired tremendously because of Yua's deception. Honestly, I can't even really be mad at his reaction because it's a pretty reasonable reaction. Even if I did, she'd probably just come up with some fancy way to trap me when I went to see her. As if I could risk that. It was true that I wasn't used to talking to girls. That was why I'd been so happy back when Yua was hitting on me. I wouldn't really call it that. And yet, the harlot had been toying with me behind my back. And on top of that, she'd come up with all those insane delusions. Even I had delusions, sure, but I never bothered anyone else with them. That's debatable. But that girl assaulted me with her schizo BS that treated me like I was the new-gen culprit. I could never forget what she'd done to me. Never! So I'd ignored her email. But there'd still been one thing that concerned me. In her email, she said she was going to come to my base, and I knew for a fact that she knew my address. That was why I decided to take refuge in At Cafe, despite it not being a school day. If I had the option, I would have brought my D-sword as a protection charm, but unlike Senna, I don't have the courage to walk down Center Guy with it. At any rate, spending almost half a day in an internet cafe was fairly tiring. The recliners were comfortable, and it was equipped with showers, but I still couldn't fully relax like I could at my base. And then the biggest problem of all, Seiratan wasn't here. After 2 days spent holed up in the cafe, I realized just how much the mere presence of Seroton helped me, because she's an addiction and you need to get away from her. You're suffering withdrawals. I wanted to hurry up and get back to my base as soon as possible. But going back late at night would mean the date would change. And by that time, the last train would already be gone. I figured that Yua most likely wouldn't be waiting for me anymore by then. I had to stick around for another 4 hours before the clock would strike midnight. I was sure time would go by a lot faster if I played ESO. I moved my gaze over to the PC monitor. My second character, Lisa-Lot, was standing there aimlessly, not moving.
お前の見ている景色は本物か？
Is the scenery your eyes perceive truly real? And then her with her cryptic shit. Well, I wouldn't say that's really cryptic. It's just, you know, her being weird. Senna's words came to my mind. More than half of what she'd said was true. The only thing I couldn't find a source for was the part where she was talking about controlling even people's wills and bodies. Maybe that part was just a delusion of hers. Mixing in just a few lies with the truth was a clever and effective way to scare people, especially with threats. Even though my reasonable side knew all that, I couldn't help but feel scared as I thought about all the strange, inexplicable phenomena that have been plaguing me over the past few weeks. In a daze, I looked at Lisa-Lot on the screen.
リーゼロって、お前の見ている景色は本物か？
Lisa-Latte, that's how it's pronounced, okay. Keeping my voice low to avoid being overheard, I whispered that absent-mindedly. I thought about something like this several times in the past. The world that I was looking at right now, Baselard, was the world that Lisa-Latte lived in. It might have been real for her, but from my perspective, it was fake. Which meant that the world that I lived in was seen as fake from the point of view of the person controlling me. I'm not saying anything about that. However, just as Lisa-Latte couldn't perceive me as a higher being, I also couldn't perceive the person controlling me as a higher being. I wondered if Lisa-Latte was thinking the same things that I was thinking. At the very least, she couldn't move on her own. I had to interfere in order for her to move. So, what about me? Maybe I, too, couldn't get up from this recliner without the interference of the person controlling me. I mean, to be fair, you cease existing until I record more of you, so I guess that can kind of... Okay, we're kind of getting into some weird existential stuff, because now I'm starting to think that I'm being controlled by somebody. Ugh. To test this, I tried to stand up. I did it with ease. After that, I tried sitting down. It took no effort. But the sequence of events, was it really of my own volition? Okay, we are getting into some weird territory here. What the fuck? Or was it the result of someone's interference? I had no way of knowing.
え？
I heard the sound of the partition door to the private room being opened behind me. I also heard the sound of heavy construction equipment outside my house with my neighbors. What are you guys doing? And at the same time, I felt someone come in. Startled, I turned around. It's Yua, isn't it? Yes!
Intense music.
Kusunoki Yua! I was so terrified that I was about to scream. We got some friggin' Dark Souls music playing right now. But Yua's hand quickly covered my mouth. Her hand was hot, and the scent of Yua's sweat infiltrated my nose.
黙って
Did you just run over here?
声は出さないで出さないって約束して約束してくれるよねしないなんて言わないよね
Yes, ma'am.
約束して
Okay, I promise. I won't make a noise, okay?
するでしょ
Yes, ma'am.
するの
No!
お願い
Stop it! No, you're not getting a delusion. There will be no delusions here today. In this small private room, the only way out was blocked by Yua. Because here's the thing. Green is going to be obviously sexual. Red is going to be murderous. There's legitimately no difference here. I'm sorry. There's no reason for me to pick a delusion. That's what I meant. The next thing I knew, my shoulders were being held down with such incredible force I couldn't even get up from my seat. Yua's cold gaze pierced through me at point-blank range. I couldn't help but look away, and my eyes fell on the 3 gyro froggies attached to the bag she was carrying on her shoulder.
いい声を出さないで
Okay, I'm not making a noise. What do I do? What should I do? I tried desperately to think of a way out of this situation, but it was no use. I couldn't think clearly. She had taken me completely by surprise. My mind had gone completely blank.
昨日あなたの家に行ったんですけどいませんでしたよね
Yeah.
夜まで待ってたんですけど
Now you're stuttering. It's interesting that she has 2 modes for her voice, which kind of has to give props to the voice actress.
でも私を避けようとする西条くんの気持ちはよくわかります
I don't doubt that for a second.
私西条くんのこと騙してたわけだし
Yeah. If you acknowledge that, then just stay away from me! I have nothing to say to any of Shogun's underlings. Anyone who traps a weak person like me is a demon! Yua looked down once. She looked like she was hesitating to say something. But then after a moment, she very clearly said a single phrase.
その目誰の目
Are you kidding me? This stupid fucking phrase! Whose eyes are those eyes? That fucking phrase!
知ってますよね知らないなんて言わせませんヴァンパイアのダイイングメッセージです
The dying message from the vampire case.
ネットで公表されたことで渋谷で大流行中の言葉
Yet we were the first to use that phrase.
でも私流行る前から知ってました
Wait, even before it was popular, you knew about it.
ヴァンパイアより前にこの言葉を使っている人がいたから
Oh, you're referring to us. Okay.
将軍
Never mind. You're using. Okay, Shogun.
前に見せましたよね
Yes, you did. You did certainly show it.
ナイトハルト西条君と将軍のチャットログ
Yes, you did.
そこで将軍が書き込んでましたその目誰の目そして
Yua inched her face closer and closer to mine. Her tone of voice was calm, but the eyes shining behind her glasses were ice cold. She was staring at me. I looked away.
将軍あなたつまり
In other words, what? And now her eyes are back to normal.
お願いです西条君もう
That was when I noticed. Yua's hands were trembling. Or was it just that my hands were shaking so much that it made it look like hers were too? While I pondered that, something unbelievable came out of her mouth.
人を殺すのやめてください
She still thinks that we are the killers. What?
自覚がないんですね
Aren't even aware of it.
でもそれも私には理解できます
What? How do you understand that?
西条君に自覚があるはずないから
Knowing... knowing what?
あなたは
Yua's eyes shone with sorrow. Even though she'd been staring at me intently until now, she suddenly cast her eyes downward.
DID 多重人格なんです。
Oh boy. How is this story... Okay. Dissociative identity disorder. Multiple personalities. Okay. So, I don't know if that's what this story is going to be going for, where our main character legitimately has that. It is a kind of shame that okay. I'm not going to hold it against this novel, by the way. I'm not. For reals, I'm not going to hold it against that. It is just a shame that anytime a story uses dissociative identity disorder or multiple personalities, it is always where the other personality is homicidal, a serial killer, or just blatantly evil. It is... Frankly, it's a bit overused. I'm not gonna hold it against us. This is just something like, okay, here we go. Who knows? Maybe this novel will do it right, but it is just kind of a shame that that is the most common thing for dissociative identity disorder to be shown in a story. It's just a shame. I had multiple personalities?
最初はあなたのこと警察に突き出すつもりでした。
Turning me over to the police. Oh, great. Despite how confused I was, Yua continued to talk.
それが無理ならこの手でとも思ってました。
Try this method. What?
だけどあなたのこと調べていくうちにあなたも苦しんでるんだって分かって。
I mean, kind of. The eyes behind Yua's glasses once again took hold of me. They pleaded with me. And no matter how hard I tried to see it as something else, I couldn't see her as anything other than genuinely worried about me. And that horrified me.
私あなたを助けたい。
Oh shit, it's playing the title, the main menu music right now. This girl's delusions were getting out of control. What she was saying was totally insane. Or was it? Was it really insane?
だから病院に行きましょう。
The hospital? I didn't truly know myself, understand myself. I had posted in a chat room under the handle Shogun without knowing it. Even though I had no memory of it, I'd become friends with a girl named Rimi. It wasn't just me sleepwalking. And it wasn't just some higher being controlling me. Maybe the person controlling me from inside my head literally was inside my head. I wasn't me. I wasn't me. I was a different personality. I had multiple personalities. My head hurt. A throbbing, stabbing pain ripped through it. That wasn't possible. The entire thing was bullshit. Who would ever believe that? It too was yet another one of Yua's delusions. She was my enemy. She was impeding my way of life. She was trying to trap me. She was trying to destroy my mind. Even the hospital itself was under Shogun's reign. The only person I'd trusted, Dr. Takashina, had disappeared in such a sudden, inexplicable manner. Shogun must have made him disappear. And if I did what Yua said, he'd make me disappear too. I don't believe her. It's not true! It's not true, 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 it's not true. I was stuck in my own head. I shoved Yua off of me with every ounce of strength I could muster. Slamming into the wooden sliding door behind her, Yua slumped down to the floor with a grimace. Finally freed from Yua's grasp, I grabbed my bag, stepped over Yua's body, and made for the exit. The sad part is, we were introduced to a scene earlier where it was like he was sleepwalking, and he was unaware that he was messing with the computer. Like, he just woke up suddenly and got on his computer, but he has no memory of this. Which means the split personality thing might potentially be a thing. Although I remember, I wish the circumstances were better, but I remember having a conversation with a friend about how there are some people that have alters. And I may have to ask them again about this. Whether alters share memories and stuff like that. Or they have their own experiences and their own ways of, like, talking and stuff. Still crumpled on the floor, Yua grabbed my ankle. Her hair was disheveled and her glasses were falling off her face, but she made no effort to fix them. Seeing her clinging so desperately to me terrified me so much. A pathetic scream escaped from my mouth. She was my enemy, one of Shogun's underlings! I won't be deceived. I won't be deceived by you ever again! I shouted as loud as I could, and Yua quickly let go of me. In that window, I bolted out of the room. Toilet! I tore a 5,000 yen bill from my wallet and slammed it down on the counter in front of the dumbfounded receptionist. And then, without getting my change, I burst onto the elevator leading outside. I nearly tumbled out of the elevator as I burst outside. The sun was already setting. I examined my surroundings. There were people everywhere. Run. It doesn't matter where, just run. My base wasn't safe. She was following me. I had no idea where to even go, but I started running anyway. Thinking that Yua might get off another elevator at any moment now, that she might threaten me again, that ice-cold voice of hers. I didn't want to stay there for even a second longer. I looked behind me over and over again, but I kept on running regardless of what I saw. The pedestrians were all in the way. I bumped into a businessman and a DQNS high school girl. When that happened, I was showered with curses. But I still didn't stop. I just kept on running. It hurt to breathe. I picked some random-ass road without thinking, and I still had no idea where I was running. I stopped to catch my breath. I checked the scenery around where I was standing. It was in front of Marauchi, which meant I could take shelter in Miyashita Park. I would take a quick break there, then I would run somewhere farther away. If I went to Yayogi Park, there would be plenty of places to hide, so I could spend the night there. I couldn't help but wonder what was behind me. I didn't see any signs of Yua. However, I wouldn't be surprised if she appeared in front of me at any second now, complete with the most terrifying demonic expression I'd ever encountered. My instincts screamed at me. Run! You need to run! There's that homeless guy again! Exhausted, I weakly sat down on the pavement at the Miyashita Park overpass. I'd run way too much. My throat was dying. I wanted to drink a nice ice-cold cola. You don't want to drink soda whenever you're going after a run like that. Sure, you'll get a burst of energy, but it'll fuck you up. But I didn't see any vending machines nearby. Maybe I was okay now that I'd come this far. No, I couldn't be careless. I still had to be fully aware of my surroundings. There should only be a few people in Miyashita Park at night. Or at least that was what I expected, but much to my surprise, that wasn't the case. There was a businessman walking briskly through the park, likely using it as a shortcut. An older man sitting on a bench messing with a cell phone. Several homeless people sitting around absent-mindedly, and lastly, a person wearing blue talking to one of them. A police officer. Another delusion? The police. I gulped audibly. I remembered that I'd been questioned by a pair of detectives a while ago. I hadn't heard a single thing from them since then. They'd said they were going to guard the area surrounding my base, but there was no sign of them following through on it. Although according to Misumi-kun, they'd apparently come to investigate Sumai. Those two detectives, what were their names again? I couldn't remember. I told both of them the truth about what I'd witnessed at the scene of the crucifixion, but in hindsight, I couldn't help but think that they'd clearly been looking at me with suspicion as I did. Or as I thought that, the policeman who had been talking to the homeless man glanced at me. Or at least, that was how it felt. Oh no. You're overthinking it, I thought to myself, but I still tried to follow the police officer's movements closely. But maybe I was being too obvious, because the cop looked over me once again, and it was clearly directed at me this time. I was the first one to look down. I doubt that I could survive a staring contest against a cop. Had he looked at me for a reason? Or was he just looked at me because I'd looked at him? Which was it? I didn't know. It could have been either one of those reasons. After waiting a few moments, I looked up and glanced at the officer once again. The cop was still looking at me, so I hurriedly turned my head away in a panic. This is bad. I was acting way too suspicious. With Yua already hunting me down, I couldn't afford to have the police coming after me too. I had to get out of this somehow. I wiped the cold sweat from my forehead. Still sitting down, I took a textbook out from my bag. I pretended to start reading it, then I casually looked over to see what the policeman was doing. The police officer brought a black object, likely a police radio, to his mouth. Was he reporting something? But from where I was sitting, the sounds of cars passing by on the street below me was so loud, I couldn't hear his voice at all. This couldn't have gone any worse. That was what I felt like. Maybe I should get out of here, I thought to myself, but it was too late for that. If I did anything careless, it would be suicide. If you pretended to read a book, you would have to keep up that pretense for a certain amount of time, or else you'd look suspicious. I had to keep up the act until the cops stopped looking at me. But right as I thought that, I realized that a figure who'd previously looked like they were heading for the park was instead walking straight toward the policeman. Upon looking at them with the corner of my eye shot open. Yua! She couldn't have possibly have come at a worse time. Cold sweat seeped not only from my forehead, but from my entire body. This was bad. This was really, really bad. It didn't look like Yua had noticed me yet, so I prayed that she would just walk away without doing so. But my prayers went unanswered. After all, the policeman's gaze was still trained on me. It was only natural that Yua, who had ran up to the cop and said something to him, would follow his gaze and lock on to me. I clicked my tongue, tucked my textbook back into my bag, and then partially got up. I took a position that would allow me to bolt at any time. Yua and the policeman exchanged a few words, and then they both looked at me. Don't look at me. Yua then blatantly pointed at me. She was explaining something to the cop. You fucking bitch. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be fucking kidding. This felt like it was enough to make even a level-headed person like myself completely snap. Yua was reporting me to the police! And not only that, but she was telling them that nonsensical, delusional bullshit that she'd pulled out of her goddamn ass. The idea that I was the new gen killer. That may be enough to satisfy you, but just put yourself in my shoes. How would you feel if you got falsely accused? My cries obviously had no way of reaching her. The policeman who had listened to Yua's story began to approach me, his shoulders squared. I stood up. Shit! I was trapped. She was going to ruin my life. What do I do? What should I do? Should I just tell the policeman the truth? That it was all a delusion she came up with? I didn't do anything! I was a model citizen! There's no way. That would never work. In this day and age, when given the choice between an otaku freak like me and a wholesome high school girl like Yua, it was fairly obvious who the cops were more likely to believe. There was no way they'd ever take anything I had to say seriously. That was why I had to run away right this instant. The second I thought that, I turned on my heel and broke into a sprint. I crossed the overpass leading toward the stairs to Meiji-dori. When I got there, I looked behind me and saw a policeman sprinting after me. And not only that, but strangely enough, the man sitting on the bench and even one of the homeless people were right behind him. Oh, you got to be kidding! Had Yua had the police on her side the entire time? Had Miyashita Park been full of undercover detectives the entire time? I had no idea what to do anymore. I'd been caught completely off guard. It was so incredibly unreasonable that I felt like I was about to cry. I hadn't done anything! I hadn't done anything at all. The police were being jerked around by her. This was insane. Boy's about to vomit. Good lord. Wiping away my tears, I rushed down the stairs. I ran down Meiji-dori, headed straight toward the station without looking at anyone or anything. This is interesting. I passed under a pedestrian overpass and ran up the stairs leading to it. There were people everywhere. All of them were blocking my path. Intense music! It felt as if each and every one of them were deliberately getting in my way, like they all had some form of malicious intent. Everyone looked like they could be cops. I was this close to completely panicking. I looked behind me and saw someone sprinting after me. I caught a glimpse of a person cutting through the crowd just like I was. It was one of the people that I'd seen in the park. I didn't know who it was. It didn't matter. They were following me regardless. I was horrified. If I got caught, my life would be over. I would be falsely accused of a crime I didn't commit, sentenced to death, locked up in a high-security prison for decades and decades, and then after I finished enduring that living hell, I would finally be told, alrighty then, your number's up, time for you to die. I didn't want that. I wouldn't be able to handle that. I didn't want to live like that. Even if I somehow managed to prove that it was a false accusation, once I was branded as a criminal, it would never go away. Everyone around me would look at me suspiciously for the rest of my life. I didn't want that. I hadn't even done anything. I turned onto a small street that was completely deserted and kept running as hard as I could. Isn't that the club where Fez was? But I'd been running ever since I'd left at Cafe, and I still hadn't been able to catch my breath. My lungs were begging for oxygen. My legs were shaking with fatigue. I hated myself for not exercising more, but it was too late for that regardless. Finally, I couldn't run anymore, so I doubled over and gripped my knees with my hands. Gotta give props to the VA, good God. The place where I'd stopped looked familiar. The distinctive red brick walls, paired with the gigantic backlight sign that read Gigantes. Hey, I was right. I'd been here before, with Misumi-kun. We'd come to see a Phantasm concert, or to be more specific, to see their lead singer, Fez. But now the place was quiet and empty, with the only other light being from the vending machine dimly illuminating my surroundings. Frustrated that my breathing still hadn't gone back to normal, I looked back toward the road I'd sprinted down. The street was dimly lit and narrow. As the Toyoko Line train slowly passed by directly above me, despite the striking glow of the light leaking from the windows of the train, even it didn't reach the streets below. I stared at the road in front of me. I wondered if I'd managed to lose them. Them being Yua and the police. It was too dark for me to tell for sure. Huh? Suddenly I heard a woman's voice in my ear and I let out a pathetic scream before toppling to the ground. Oh shit, hi Fez. It was Fez, dressed in the flashy outfit that she would wear to a concert. Goth. As she quickly looked down at me from the darkness, the eruptive energy that she'd given off while she was on stage was now completely absent, making her appear almost transient, like she might disappear at any moment. Because of the darkness, I couldn't see her expression. As my mind wandered in my surprise, Fez gently held her hand out to me. Her tone of voice was dispassionate, but I could tell that she wasn't going to let me argue with her. Still holding out her hand, Fez slowly craned her neck, then narrowed her eyes as if she had seen through the darkness. Pardon? Why? Did she know that I'd been running from Yua and the police? I was freaked out for a second, but I knew that right now, salvation was almost within my grasp. That was why, as if I was clinging to my only hope left, I took her hand. Her hand was cold to the touch. Right as I stood up, Fez started running. As I was already utterly exhausted, I felt incredible resentment. But I knew that if it hadn't been for Fez, I would have been able to stand up. I would never have been able to stand up again, and the police would have likely caught up with me. I still wanted to quench my dying thirst in some way, but I knew I couldn't afford to. Fez pulled me by the hand and led us forward. We entered a narrow alleyway and made turn after turn at various intersections. I had no idea where I was running to. I wasn't even familiar with the layout of Shibuya, so I had no choice but to follow Fez the entire time. I nearly entertained the idea that this could be on the trap set by Shogun, but I shook the thought from my head. If everything is fucking connected to Shogun, dear God! But wait a minute, I'm Shogun. Wait. Even if Fez was another one of Shogun's underlings, there would be nothing I could do about it. My legs are heavy with lactic acid. That is a sentence. And I was starting to feel lightheaded. Probably because my brain hadn't been getting enough oxygen due to all the running. I was this close to crying out and saying that I couldn't run anymore. In fact, I may or may not have said it several times unconsciously. But even so, Fez never once looked back at me. She just kept on going. Before I knew it, I found myself on a road where the Shudo Expressway ran overhead. Shibuya Station was only a little bit farther away, but there were barely any people around. Without a shred of hesitation, Fez started to head down the stairs that led into the gaping maw of the underground. Upon reaching the bottom of the stairs, she finally came to a stop. I let go of Fez's hands and doubled over on the stairs, gasping for breath. I wonder how much running I had done today. Probably enough to make you feel sore all over whenever you lay down. And then you'll probably be sore all over the next day. And the next. I didn't think I'd ever exercise so much in my entire life. Apparently for her too. For a while, the only sounds present in the dim, dreary underground tunnel were the sounds of me and Fez breathing. I looked up at the entrance where we had just come down from, but there was no sign of our pursuers. I guess that meant we'd managed to escape somehow. That aside, this was my first time learning that this underground passage even existed. On top of that, even though it was fairly close to the station, there wasn't a single person passing through it. One of the fluorescent lights that illuminated the tunnel was on its last legs, flickering on and off without end. There was the faint smell of rotting garbage in the air. It was a place that symbolized the underground side of Shibuya. If someone were to attack me here, even if I screamed as loud as I could, it may not even reach the outside. This was not a place I would ever want to come to alone. Come alone to. Nope. We do not do poorly timed delusions. Still breathing heavily, I slowly examined Fez's profile. She was a charismatic songstress who captivated the youth of Shibuya. People even called her a prophet. And now that very same Fez was here alone with an otaku freak piece of shit like me. I wasn't sure what to make of it. Her forehead was beading with sweat, with several drops running down her cheeks. She was wiping it off with the back of her hand. Yep, I immediately knew it. Yep, we are not doing a delusion. Her breasts, exposed through her camisole, rose and fell with every breath she took. A glimpse providing healthy eroticism in an atmosphere flowing with inui. Moe didn't do it justice. The best and only possible word befitting of her was erotic. Fuck off, dude. Seriously, dude? Just fuck off. She was tall, had a great body, and she looked like a model. I was sure she was popular with the guys, too. Wait, what kind of stupid shit was I thinking about? Did I forget the situation I was in? Well, at least you're aware of it. What kind of stupid shit was I thinking about? Did I forget the situation I was in? Yeah, really, dude.
追われてたわね。
Yes. Yes, I was indeed being pursued, and I am worn out.
警察？
Yeah? I nodded in response. It wasn't just the police. Yua was following me too, but I was too exhausted to tell her that.
私も同じ。
Wait, you're being pursued by the police too? Huh? What was that supposed to mean?
私が書いた歌詞となんとかって呼ばれてる事件との関係についてだって。
The lyrics you wrote in some incident you can't recall the name of.
しつこく聞かれたわ。
Now it's starting to sound like just innocent people that aren't even related to the murders are starting to be targeted now. That is, if our theory about Takumi having multiple personalities is wrong. New Gen. The lyrics that Fez had written matched up with that string of incidents. That was why all her sheep wouldn't shut up with all those rumors. They'd been saying that she was a prophet.
私疑われてるみたい。
As the new gen criminal? I thought the same back when I'd first heard her lyrics. Hell, I'd even thought that Fez herself was Shogun. But considering the fact that she'd saved me, she probably wasn't. Putting all that aside, I wonder why Fez was even there. Her saving me must have just been a coincidence. Yeah, it had to be. I mean, I've been right in front of the concert venue, so there was probably just another concert today.
君が追われてるのはなぜ？
They think I'm the new gen dude?
何か悪いことでもしたの？
I don't know. That's a bit of a loaded question.
チクられた。あの女、僕のことチクったんだ。
Well, again, you don't know that.
ニュージェネ犯人にされる。
Yua was trying to set me up. God damn it! Shogun and that girl were going to ruin my life!
そう。容疑者候補ね。私たち。
What? Why was she laughing?
僕は無実だ!
I yelled out frantically. My voice reverberated loudly throughout the underpass, but I couldn't stop now.
事件を目撃しただけだ。証拠品を勝手に持ち帰っちゃったけど、それだけ。僕殺してない。
それなら。
Fez whispered, returning to her original dispassionate voice.
きっとそれは導きなのよ。
Guidance?
大いなる存在による。
Guidance of a higher... Oh my god, no. Another fucking mental case? Another goddamn Chuniboyoi?
君の見たものが事実だったか幻だったかは些細なこと。
Dear Lord. That horrible scene. Was there any possibility that it had all just been an illusion? But it all felt so real.
君が今抱いている苦しみや怒りは必要なものだったということよ。
What the flying flapjacks are you talking about? What was she saying? I was utterly dejected. I'd been slightly suspicious back at the concert, and I'd turned out to be right. Fez really was a total schizo freak. They say there's a fine line between genius and insanity, but this is pushing it.
だから早く見つけて。
What?
剣を見つけて。
What the fuck? I was taken aback. That was what Fez had told me back when we'd met at school. If you do, you'll be granted salvation. She said this before. Aside from the police, what scared me the most was Shogun and his underlings. I had no idea why. They were all trying to trap me, and they all clearly had malicious intent. In order to save myself from them, in order to protect myself, I needed...
理想度
Yeah.
そうよ。
Fez's lips twisted into the shape of a smile.
勉強したみたいね。
Studying is definitely a word we could use.
それなら手に入れた僕は理想度も持ってる
Do you?
今家に
知ってるわ。
Oh. She knew? How did she know?
見たから。
What?
君が渋谷のど真ん中を歩いていたの。
Directly in the middle of Shibuya.
大きなおもちゃを抱きしめて恥ずかしそうにしてたわね。
Ah. Right. Was she talking about the day I bought the D-sword? Ah, Fez had seen me. Fuck my life. Wait a minute. What did she just said?
おもちゃ
A toy? The smile had already disappeared from Fez's face. She glanced at my face and let out a small sigh. Her sense of inui, her aloofness was so pure it made me feel uneasy.
偽物だと思うわ。あなたの買った剣は。
A fake, naturally. I wasn't even that surprised. I'd expected it, honestly. The sword I'd bought was way too cheap compared to the one Senna had. It didn't even glow. Besides, the idea that a sword that would supposedly bring me salvation was being sold for 10,000 yen alongside sex toys is the least anime thing possible. I don't know. So yeah, I wasn't surprised. Instead, I felt a furious surge of anger well up inside me. Anger at the gloomy shopkeeper who tricked me. Anger at myself for being so pathetic that I had to be tricked that easily. Anger at Fez for saying nothing meaningful in the slightest instead of just giving me a straight answer.
じゃあ
I stood up and moved closer to Fez. Normally, I would have never done something like that, but I was desperate. I'd been chased by Yua and the police only a few moments ago, and I was absolutely terrified. Not only that, but in the past month or so, I'd experienced countless bad thoughts. It was all too much for me. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get my hands on the sword so I could get back to my peaceful way of life.
教えてよ理想度はどうやって手に入れるのか
How do we get a D-sword? Fez's expression stiffened and then she turned to me.
見て。
Watch? You're gonna summon one, aren't you? She suddenly thrust the palm of her right hand out in front of me. Stopping me from coming any closer, Fez curled her right hand into a fist. Upon swinging her hand behind her in a motion resembling a back fist, together with a sound akin to that of glass breaking, the empty space cracked and then it shattered. My eyes went wide. I was speechless. Fez stared at me. Her expression had not changed in the slightest. Within the cracks of the shattered space was a deep darkness spreading wide. With her hand buried between the fissures, Fez pulled her hand back toward her with tremendous force. Hey! That is not... I don't think that was the same thing that she was using back at the concert. That's different. And now within that hand was a giant sword.
ソード。
Where the hell? The fissures in the empty space were repaired in an instant. The cracks disappeared as if nothing had even happened. It all happened in the span of a few seconds. It's a sword. Had that been a magic trick? Or was I just seeing just a delusion? It was far too removed from reality. I couldn't believe what had just happened right in front of me. This is a fantasy anime.
この剣は命運を握るもの。
A sword that bends fate to its will. That sword. It was the same one she'd been wielding at the concert. Are you sure? My memory says it looked a bit different. The same one I'd mistaken for a microphone stand. Its shape almost looked like a battleship ripped straight from a sci-fi anime.
この剣は嘆きを収束させたもの。
Converges all sorrows. There were no straight lines to be found on it, and yet it appeared incredibly sharp, incredibly beautiful, incredibly sinister.
この剣は超越した場所に干渉するためのもの。
What? And that if you so much as touched it, your fingers would be severed from the bone.
超越した場所って。
I was mesmerized. Her D-sword utterly captivated me. Which is why I'd asked her that without thinking.
異空間のようなもの。
I kinda had a feeling that's what you were referring to. Oh boy! Info don't time! This was definitely an anime at this point.
同一次元上にあるもう一つの可能性。
Uh-huh.
あるいは妄想。
A delusion?
言い方にあんまり意味はないわ。
No shit! My head still hurts.
唯一確かなの。この剣もその領域に存在しているということ。
So in other words, she was saying that her D-sword was a product of her delusions. Did that mean that the supernatural phenomena I'd seen before had also been delusions? Had they not been real?
そんなのありえない。
そう。
If it was a delusion, then why was I seeing Fez's sword right now?
言葉に引きずられてはダメよ。後ろを振り返ってみて。
Turn around? I was baffled by Fez's request, but I complied anyway. Behind me was a flight of stairs, and on those stairs... Why do I feel like you have to have a high IQ to understand this fucking novel? Was Fez wearing her school uniform? Okay, so I'm assuming that this is... Okay. I just realized I'm probably going to be horribly wrong here. What I am literally getting at is that delusions can literally affect reality and those that are near said delusions. So my thought process is, as soon as she pulled out that sword, because I was in the vicinity, her delusions are affecting reality, and I'm able to witness those delusions that she is projecting. Fez was standing right beside me. Fez was also standing on the stairs right in front of me. Two of the same person in the same place. Completely and utterly flustered, I relentlessly snapped back and forth between the two Fezes, over and over again, comparing them. They were exactly the same, right down to their facial features, height, and hairstyles. The only differences were their clothes and whether or not they were carrying a sword. They weren't twins or anything like that, and they didn't just look alike. They were one and the same.
これも君の妄想よ。
Uh, The two fezzes said at the exact same time. My head started to hurt. What kind of insane phenomena was this shit? What the hell was happening? My head hurts. I'm done. Thank you all very much for watching. Fuck that. Oh my god. I've already made my theories. My thought process is that as soon as she called out that sword, that anybody that's near her would also be affected by whatever the hell kind of delusion bullshit that she was inflicting on anybody that's near.